GRIAS Academy.
100 days, 100 themes, one goal, UPSC Prelims. Hello all, welcome back to the program Mission Surya Phase 3, a STEM revision program where we deal with current affairs regarding science and technology and environment in completely prelims perspective. So let's get started with our today's session. So, in our today's session, we are going to see few what you call theoretically possible topics for UPSC prelims, which is regarding to the environment. Like we'll discuss about the COP30, which is held in the Brazil, and we'll see what are the outcomes in it, and we'll see few climate relevant, climate and environment related topics also. So let's move on to our first topic. Our first topic is UNFCCC COP30, which is held in Belém, Brazil, a place called Belém in Brazil, and climate finance. Okay, we'll see what is the background and context of this UNFCCC. Okay, UNFCCC COP30. Okay, this is the 30th conference of parties, COP30. Okay, which is under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. United Nations Framework on Climate Convention on Climate Change, which was convened in Belém, a place in Brazil called Belém. Okay, which is marking the 10 years since the adoption of the 2015 Paris Agreement. From the 2015 Paris Agreement, this is the 30th meeting. That way it is very special. Okay, which is conducted in the Amazon region. This summit is widely described as the Forest COP as well as the COP of implementations. Forest COP as well as the COP of implementations, where it is discussions were inspired by the idea of mutuality, emphasizing inclusiveness, cooperation and balance. Okay, this COP30 is completely regarding the environmental aspects. Okay, environmental aspects. It is called COP, Forest COP, to conserve the forests also. Okay, next. Moving forward, let's see the India's position and the equity concerns of India. Let's see. Representing the like-minded developing countries, it is representing the like-minded developed countries. India is strongly advocating for the implementation of Article 6, Article 9, okay, so of the Paris Agreement, which places the responsibility on developed nations, which places the responsibility of the like-minded nations onto the developed nations to provide what? Climate finance to developing countries. Okay, so India has also supported the creation by creating a two-year work program on climate finance to continue negotiations up to 2028. Okay, next. India criticized the climate finance target. India also criticized the climate finance target of $300 billion annually that had earlier been agreed upon COP29 in Brazil. It was, in Baku. Okay. It is previously this $300 billion agreement was agreed in the COP29 agreement, but India is now criticizing in the COP30 agreement. Why? Because arguing that the amount was grossly insufficient. To meet the needs of developing nations. This amount is not sufficient. This is what India is coming up. Okay. Next, according to India, the climate ambitions of the global south cannot be fully realized without assured, transparent and predictable financial support. Okay, so at the same time, India welcomed the establishment of the just tradition mechanism. Okay, this is the position of India and equity concerns in COP30. Okay, let's see what are the major outcomes of this COP30 agreement. Is the conference concluded with the adoption of the Belém package, which is covering issues related to mitigation, adoption and climate linked trade measures. Okay, so one of the important development was the approval of the Baku to Belém roadmap, which is 1.3 tons. Okay, which provided a formal pathway. It is for providing a formal pathway for mobilizing the new collective quantified goal. New collective quantified goal of 1.3 trillion annually by 2035. Okay, this was the new figure. Next, the summit also agreed to triple adoption finance targets, triple the adoption finance targets to $120 billion per year. Next, another significant initiative, the next outcome of this COP30 was the endorsement of the tropical forest forever facility, which is aimed at creating a $125 billion fund, to reward tropical countries for conserving the standard forest. As the forests are given high importance, it is named, this COP30 is named as Forest COP, right? Next, in addition, India and other 12 developing countries, India along with other 12 developing countries announced plans to establish country or regional platforms for climate and finance, nature finance, okay, with support from readiness program of the Green Climate Fund. Okay, these are the few outcomes of COP30. Okay, where is this COP30 held? In Brazil. Okay, next, see this Article 6 of the Paris Agreement and carbon markets. Okay, let's see what is the background and recent developments. The Union Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, MOFCC, the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change has formally designated the National Designated Authority for the implementation of Article 6 of the Paris Agreement in India. Okay, now what is this Article 6 and the international carbon markets is, the Article 6 of the Paris Agreement provides a framework, for countries to meet their climate commitments through voluntary international cooperation and the creation of global carbon markets mechanism. Okay, so during COP29, during the previous summit, that is COP29, parties finalized the operational rules which are governing this mechanism. Okay, next, we will see the detailed structure of this Article 6. Like the first one is Article 6 Clause 2. Article 6 Clause 2, which is the bilateral cooperative mechanism, which deals as Article 6 Clause 2 establishes what? It establishes a decentralized framework. That allows countries to engage in bilateral or multilateral cooperations, to engage the countries in the bilateral or multilateral cooperations to the exchange of internationally transferred mitigation outcomes. So this mechanism enables the nation to trade emission reduction outcomes, to help achieve their climate targets. Okay, the next is Article 6 Clause 4, which is the Paris Agreement crediting mechanism, where Article 6.4 creates a centralized international carbon market. It creates what? Centralized international carbon market mechanism known as the Paris Agreement crediting mechanism. Which replaces the clean development mechanism. This clean development mechanism, according to this Article 6.4, this clean development mechanism is replaced by Paris Agreement crediting mechanism. Okay, next, that existed under the Kyoto Protocol, which we have seen previously. Okay, next, coming to a key feature of this mechanism is that 5% of the proceeds generated from the transitions, 5% of proceeds which are generated from the transitions are directed to the Global Adoption Fund. These 5% is directed to the Global Adoption Fund to support vulnerable countries, So the framework also limits the use of carbon credits by permitting only credits generated after 2013. Okay, next. The next is Article 6.8, which is the non-market approach, which states about the non-market approach. Let's see, Article 6.8, which focuses on non-market approaches that encourages climate mitigation and sustainable development. Without involving the trade of emissions, reductions or carbon credits. It is not involving the trade of emission reductions or carbon credits. Okay, next, this is about Article 6. When coming to the India's institutional framework and project focus, we will see like India's national designated authority. India's national designated authority has been constituted as 21-member committee. 21-member committee which is chaired by the Secretary of the Environment Ministry. Ministry of Environment. Okay, next, see, the NDA is responsible for approving, the National Designated Authority is responsible for approving projects under Article 6.4 and recommending activities which are eligible for participation in international carbon market mechanism. Okay, this is the responsibility of NDA. Now, India is also identified as several priority sectors and activities for implementing. Okay, what are those means? The first one is greenhouse gas mitigation initiatives. Greenhouse gas mitigation initiatives such as renewable energy and green hydrogen projects. And the second point is use of alternative low carbon materials like green ammonia. And the last one is carbon removal technologies which are including carbon capture, utilization and storage. These are the few India has come up with the priority sectors. Okay, next we will see. Coming to the next topic, we have seen about the COP30, right? Now we will see the Montreal Protocol and short-lived climate pollutants. Okay, now what is the background of it is the 37th meeting of the parties, this 37th meeting of parties, that is MOP 37 to the Montreal Protocol recently concluded that drawing attention to inconsistencies in the reporting of hydrofluorocarbons. Basically, these hydrofluorocarbons are very dangerous to the climate because it depletes the ozone layer, right? So, because of these hydrofluorocarbons, emissions across countries. Around the same period, India joined the Quads-Wellington Declaration 2024. Okay, what is it? It is reaffirming its commitment to promoting energy efficient cooling technologies, particularly for region experiencing rising temperature, Okay, now let us see how this hydrofluorocarbons are and their climate impact. Okay, hydrofluorocarbons and their climate impact. See, hydrofluorocarbons are basically a synthetic greenhouse gases. These are synthetic greenhouse gases widely used in refrigerators, air conditioners and aerosol products. Okay, they were originally introduced as a substitutes for chlorofluorocarbons. Basically, these hydrofluorocarbons are substitutes of chlorofluorocarbons which were responsible for ozone layer depletion. Okay, next. See, let us see few important concepts regarding this. Unlike CFCs like chlorofluorocarbons, HFCs, hydrofluorocarbons, do not react with the ozone. They do not react with the ozone and therefore do not damage the ozone layer. However, they are extremely powerful greenhouse gases. These are extremely powerful greenhouse gases that trap the heat in the troposphere layer. Okay, now see, the HFCs possess global warming potentials. These hydrofluorocarbons possess the global warming potentials that are thousands of times greater than carbon dioxide. rather than this carbon dioxide, it is 1000 times more than the carbon dioxide emissions. Okay. So, although they are categorized as short-lived climate pollutants, they are categorized as the short-lived climate pollutants with an average atmospheric lifespan of nearly 15 years. Okay, so their warming impact is exceptionally high, though they are very short lifespan in the atmosphere, but their impact on the environment is very high. Okay, like over a 20-year period, certain hydrofluorocarbons can warm the atmosphere nearly how much times? 3790 times more than the carbon dioxide. And the carbon dioxide hydrofluorocarbons are mostly affecting the climate because it can affect the climate 1000 times more than the carbon dioxide. Okay, next see the major contributors to global hydrofluorocarbon emissions. The major contributors globally for this hydrofluorocarbons are, first is China, then the United States, India, the European Union and the Japan. What are the major countries which contribute to the global HFC emissions are China, United States of America, India, European Union and Japan. Okay. Next, coming to the Kigali Amendment and Global Policy Response. Kigali Amendment and Global Policy Response. Okay, see, due to their severe climatic impact, these hydrofluorocarbons are being gradually phased down. These are gradually phased down under the Kigali Amendment 2016 to the Montreal Protocol. Okay, so the amendments is expected to prevent what? Approximately 0.4 degrees Celsius to 0.52 degrees Celsius of global warming by the end of the century. Okay, so India ratified the Kigali Amendment in 2021 and committed to reduce hydrofluorocarbon consumption by how much percentage? 85% by the year 2047. Okay, India has ratified this Kigali Amendment in the year 2021 and it committed to reduce the hydrofluorocarbons emissions up to 85% by 2047. Okay, next. See, India Cooling Action Plan. The next one is India Cooling Action Plan. What is it? It is a domestic level India introduced. At domestic level, India introduced India Cooling Action Plan to improve sustainable cooling practices, and energy efficiency. Okay, so what is this plan? What it aims for means, it aims to reduce overall cooling demand. It reduces the overall cooling demand by 20 to 25%. Next, it aims to achieve a 25 to 40% reduction in energy consumption related to cooling. Next is to encourage adoption of efficient and climate friendly cooling technologies. This is what the aim of India Cooling Action Plan. Next, the next one, see, we have seen about this COP30 and the few agreements of Montreal Protocol, right? Now we will see India's climate commitments and domestic policy. India's climate commitments and domestic policy, in that first one is evaluation of nationally determined contribution. Evaluation of nationally determined contributions. What is the background of it is, the Union Cabinet has approved India's updated nationally determined contributions. And the country is expected to officially submit its revised 2035 climate targets by December. By this December, India is going to officially submit the revised climate targets. Okay, revised climate targets of 2035 in this December. Okay, next, see, nationally determined contributions, NDCs, are National Climate Action Plans. These are the National Climate Action Plans which are submitted to the UNFCCC every 5 years. For every 5 years, this NDCs will be submitting their action plans. Okay, under what? Under Paris Agreement framework. Okay, although they are not legally binding, they reflect each country's climate ambition and policy direction. Okay, next. Coming to the progressive enhancement under the Paris Agreement, we will see the Paris Agreement requires every successive NDC to demonstrate progression. Every successive NDC to demonstrate the progression, meaning the new commitments must be stronger than the previous ones. Okay, so by using 2005 as the baseline year which is used is 2005, India has substantially strengthened its climate targets for 2035. Making the base year as 2005, India has set the targets to 2035 and submitting the report. Next. Let's see the major revisions in India. Okay, the major revisions in India's climate targets. What are the revisions? We'll see now. The first one is emission intensity reduction. Emission intensity reduction. In that sector, India's early commitment is aimed at reducing the emissions intensity. That is the of GDP by 45% by 2030. 45% by 2030. This target has been enhanced to now not 45%, it is increased to 47% reduction by 2035. Okay, so notably India had already achieved nearly how much? 36% of reduction by 2020. Okay, by 2020 only we have achieved 36% of reduction in the emissions. Now we have only the remaining 11%, almost 11% is remaining for achieved by 2035. Okay, next, expansion of non-fossil fuel capacity. In this, the previous goal is set to 50% of non-fossil fuel based installed electricity capacity by 2030. This is the previous goal. Now it has been increased to 60% by 2035. Previously it is how much? 50% of non-fossil fuel based installed electricity capacity by 2030, but now it is increased to 60% by 2035 because India has already crossed the earlier benchmark. It already crossed the earlier benchmark with non-fossil fuel sources, which is accounting for about 52.57% of installed power capacity. Okay. Now we are very close to 60%. We hope we will achieve it by 2035 as we said. Next is carbon sink expansion. In this, India's early target of creating an additional carbon sink of 2.5 to 3 billion tons of carbon dioxide, which is equivalent by 2030. Okay, how much billion tons? 2.5 to 3 billion tons of carbon dioxide equivalent by 2030, but now it has been expanded to 3.5 to 4 billion tons by 2035. It has expanded to 3.5 to 4 billion tons by 2035. At present, India has already achieved an estimated carbon sink of nearly 2.29 billion tons. Okay. Next, these are few estimated the revised targets by 2035. Coming to few important UPSC concepts regarding this installed capacity versus actual generation, we will see. It is a significant conceptual distinction which exists, between installed renewable energy capacity and actual electricity generation. Okay, so although these non-fossil fuel sources contribute more than 52% of India's installed power capacity, renewable sources currently generate only slightly above 20% of the total electricity output in our India. Okay, this gap exists mainly because renewable energy sources such as solar and wind intermittent in nature. Okay, next, coming to the strategic and geopolitical significance of it, as the world's third largest emitter, India as the world's third largest emitter and one of the largest energy consumers, and India is one of the largest energy consumers. India strengthened climate commitments which carry major geopolitical importances. Okay, so these targets project India as a serious advocate of clean energy transition, okay, especially at a time when several developed nations including the United States and increasingly turning back towards oil and gas production. Okay, this is the strategic and global significance of India. Next. And the next one is greenhouse gas emission intensity rules and green credit program. What is it? We'll see the background and recent developments of it. The Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, has notified the greenhouse gas emissions intensity target amendment rules 2025 under the Environment Protection Act 1986. So these rules make industrial emission reduction targets legally enforceable in India. The industrial emission reduction targets are not legally mandated in India, but by this amendment, what is the amendment? Greenhouse gas emission intensity target amendment rules 2025 had made industrial emission reduction targets legally enforceable in India. So this green gas emission intensity targets and compliance framework. Let's see the gas emission intensity and compliance framework. What is it? The new framework prescribes greenhouse gas emission intensity targets for more than 460 industrial units across the country. For how many industrial units? 460 industrial units. Okay, next. Moving forward, let's see the expansion of this covered sectors. Previously, only few sectors are included, but by this amendment, few more sectors of this industries have been added. We will see previously what are there and what have been added. Previously, the framework covered sectors such as aluminium, cement, chlor-alkali, pulp and paper. Okay, the scope has now been widened to include the included one are petroleum refining, petrochemicals, iron and steel, textile industries are also added in the this framework. Okay, these sectors are also included in this framework. Next, coming to the emission reduction targets, these obligated industries are required to reduce their greenhouse gas emission intensity, okay, measured as tons of carbon dioxide which are equivalent per unit of product output, equivalent per unit of product output by nearly how much percentage it has to decrease? It has to decrease to 3 to 7% by the year what? By the year 2026 and 2027. Okay, so the baseline year for measuring the performance has been fixed at 2023, the financial year 2023 and 24. The baseline year is the financial year 2023 and 2024, and now based on this amendment rules, the industries has given a target of reducing the emissions by 3% to 7% by the year 2026 to 2027. Okay, next. What is this carbon credit target trading scheme? Carbon credit trading scheme. What is it? It was established under the Energy Conservation Amendment Act 2002. Energy Conservation Amendment Act 2002. So the scheme operates as an intensity based baseline and credit scheme, and which includes scope 1. What is the scope 1? Emissions. First is emissions, which direct emissions from industrial operations. The emissions which are directly coming from the industrial operations is the first scope, and the second scope is the emissions which are indirect emissions arising from purchased electricity or energy use. Okay, these are the two scopes of this carbon credit targeting scheme mechanism. Okay, so industries unable to meet their prescribed emission targets, okay, the industries which are not unable to meet this prescribed emission targets must compensate for the deficit. They have to compensate for the deficit by purchasing carbon credit certificates. Okay, from where? Through the Indian carbon market. There will be a market called these are all online platforms only. So from Indian carbon markets, they have to purchase a carbon credit certificate if the industries are unable to meet their prescribed emission targets. Okay. Next, what is the penalty now if industries doesn't meet their targets and all? What is the penalty? Penalty for non-compliance. What is it? It is failure to comply with emission obligations. Failures to comply with emission obligations attracts an environmental compensation penalty. Environmental compensation penalty, which is equal to a average market trading price. Average market trading price of the carbon credit certificates. Okay, this is the penalty. Coming to the institutional structure of this, the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, which acts as an administrator of the scheme. For this scheme, the Bureau of Energy Efficiency is the administrator. The next is the Central Electricity Regulatory Commission. The Central Electricity Regulatory Commission, which oversees and regulates carbon credit trading activities. Okay. These are the institutional frameworks for carbon credit targeting. Next is the Green Credit Program. Green Credit Program. What is this Green Credit Program is? Alongside this gas emission initiative rules, the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change also introduced methodologies for calculating green credits which are related to tree plantation activities. Okay. So, this Green Credit Program operates a market oriented mechanism under the Lifestyle of Environment Initiative, Okay, it allows what? It allows participants to generate tradable green credits through environmentally beneficial activities. Okay. Next, let's see a few distinctions between this green credits and carbon credits. What is this? It is a notable feature of program is that green credits are separate from conventional carbon credits. Green credits are separate from the conventional carbon credits. Okay, these credits can be traded only once. They can only be traded once, ensuring that they cannot be repeatedly reused. Or recycled within the market system. Okay. So, we have discussed concepts regarding the environment like COP30, and we have looked for the greenhouse gas emissions and the hydrofluorocarbons and chlorofluorocarbons and the targets which have been revised by the India, and what is the target by 2020, 2030 and 2035 difference of revision of these targets, and we have seen all the concepts regarding the environment. I hope everyone liked this session. To get a detailed note on this, do visit our website and download the note from there. The link is provided in the description below, and do follow our Instagram ID and Telegram ID for your UPSC preparation, and like, subscribe and share our YouTube channel for your UPSC preparation. I'll see you all tomorrow with another content of science and technology and environmental related current affairs. Thank you.